Although one of my favorite things to do is marathon an entire series, with new books constantly being added to my TBR, I have a bit of a problem. There are far too many series that I need to either continue in, DNF, or complete. At this moment in time, there's actually 77 series that I'm working on. So in this vlog, I will use a spinner wheel to help me narrow that down. On my spinner wheel, I have 5 of my most anticipated sequels, and 5 I really just need the push to read to help me decide whether I'm going to be continuing on in that series. And I'm hoping that you and me together can get my 77 series down just a little bit. Hi! I'm excited for this video. I do need to give a big ol' shout out to Becca and the Books. I did a series vlog last year around this time, but with Becca's Shelve It or Scrap It being one of mine and all of ours favorite series on YouTube right now, I definitely took some inspiration with the intro and some of the concept of this one. So thank you to Becca for constantly inspiring BookTube. I have my handy dandy spinner wheel here and I'm excited for some of these and very nervous for others. Let's get right on into it. That's a good one for me. Okay, so The Hunted Heir is the sequel to The Veiled Kingdom, which I gave 4 stars. The romance in this was some of my favorite, but the plot definitely needed a little more attention. However, I'm so excited for this sequel. I've heard really good things. I've heard there's a cliffhanger that is going to murder me. I had so much fun. I giggled so much throughout the story. We're following our main character, whose name I don't remember. I remember his name. His name's Dakra. I love him. But her, I need to figure out what her name is. Okay, it literally doesn't say on the back, but we're following our main character who is a princess, but she has been kept prisoner essentially by her father. Her father doesn't like anything that could affect his reign, and like obviously the number one thing to affect his reign is if his daughter plotted to murder him and kill him and then she'd become the queen. When she takes the opportunity to escape, she does, but she ends up running right into the rebellion and she has to pretend she's not who she is because she knows if they find out that she's the princess, they will use her to their own advantage, and she also doesn't want that. She just wants freedom. She just wants to live her life how she wants to live it. So she pretends to be someone else, but Dakra, the son of the rebellion leader, is kind of onto her. But the thing is, they're getting a little hot and heavy. Feelings are starting to come into play, and by the time he really figures out exactly what's going on, he already kind of cares about her. I'm very, very excited to go into this second book. The smut scenes in book 1 are some of my favorite, and I don't call myself a smut reader. It's a little bit of a bully romance. It's definitely like hate to love, enemies to lovers, and I'm very excited. They're pretty short books. I don't own the second one yet because I want to get these pretty foiled editions, but it's on KU, so I'm very excited to start it. I hope it takes off like just where the last one ended because that ending was top tier. I am 50% into The Hunted Heir. I'm sorry, but I could DNF this currently. This is so depressing. So depressing, and I hate it so much. I'm not gonna DNF it because it's such a short, quick read. Like, I haven't really been concentrating on reading that much, and I've made a good dent in that. It's just lost the like flair that the first one had, and I think the first one, what made it feel like so fun was the two of them together. The enemies to lovers, hate to love, like watching them get at it, but like also watching them get at it while getting at it was kind of like the vibe. They aren't together until 40% in this book. So we have 40% of this book with them doing separate things. And the thing is, their separate things are so repetitive. Nothing happens. They're just journeying. They're traveling. And in their thoughts, all they're saying is, well, she's the princess. Well, he's the heir to the rebellion. She hates me. He hates me. What if she wasn't the princess? It's so repetitive. Like the same like 3 thoughts are crossing both of their minds again and again and again. And I just got really sick and bored of it. I was like, okay, give me some development, give me some plot, give me some spicy scenes, give me something. I was cheering for her and another guy at this point, and I am team Dakra, so like, what? That was the best scene because nothing else happened. So the scene of her like kind of flirting with this other guy, I was like, you get it, girl. You get it. Thanks for giving me something. So I'm hoping the second half does it for me. They're back together. I'm hoping we get like kinky spicy scenes. I'm hoping, you know, Oh, another thing. Another thing. One of the pet peeves I have in books is when there's a big cliffhanger at the end of one book and then the next book almost like pretends that that cliffhanger doesn't even exist. And for me, it was like where their emotions lie at the end of the first book. I feel like we just jump into book 2 and kind of forget the intensity of those emotions and we go right back to the same old thing. So like it felt like, why give us that cliffhanger to just not really care about it? It just felt like a thing to make the reader hooked, but not really plot progression. That's it. Okay, I'm done my little rant. I'm hoping I love the last half. I'm hoping I just like eat it up. I think I'm gonna curl up in bed, read a little bit more of this, maybe play on my Switch a little bit, and I'm watching Real Housewives of Orange County a couple seasons back because I wanted to be up to date because there's some good drama happening with the new season and I'm not up to date on Orange County and I have like a goal to watch all the Real Housewives all the way through and I'm really close. I only have like 3 left, but Orange County's like one of the really big ones I have left. I've seen bits and pieces of Orange County throughout time, but I've never watched it like all the way through, and that's like a goal of mine. But we're going back like 4. My camera died right there. Okay, but I think that's a sign that I need to go to bed. I've been talking for too long. Anyways, I went back like 4 seasons, so I'm in the Orange County binge currently and enjoying it. Update you tomorrow. I finished The Haunted Heir this morning. I'm giving it 2 stars. Nothing has hurt me more than this. Like nothing. I did not expect this. I was so excited for this release. I thought I was going to absolutely love it. And here I am talking trash about it. Literally nothing happens in this. It is a 200-page novel that should have been a 100-page novella. There's no character growth. There's no character development. In fact, Dakra is an entirely new character in this. He does not feel like the Dakra from book 1 in my opinion. He's a simp. And like, hear me out, there's nothing wrong with being a simp for your girl. It's what we all want. I want a man to literally worship the ground that I walk on, but not after what happened in book 1. Like, I don't want him just to be a new person. Like, how did he go from book 1 ending to what we got in this? It makes no sense. It doesn't compute. There was no progression to get there besides like 1 sentence 10 pages into the book. All of a sudden he was just like, I regret everything. I love her. We're destined to be together. And also, don't get me started on mates. Why does every single fantasy romance have to make things fated mates? It's not a spoiler to say that this book has fated mates, because every book does it. For once in a fantasy romance's life, why? Just think about it. Why not be different? Why not be unique? Why not be the next big trend? There was no need for there to be mates in this and true mates and things like that. I don't know. It wasn't necessary to the story. Like, some I love it in. Like, I have nothing against fated mates, but I feel like nowadays it's just thrown in there because it's like clickbait and like the word that people use. Sometimes I feel like it's used as an excuse for an author to not put the work into developing those feelings for us. They're like, well, they're destined to be together, so like that's why they feel this way. That's how I felt in this book. I will still read the 3rd book. I'm still excited for the 3rd book, but it's not going to be my most anticipated because this was not good. And because it wasn't good, I didn't care about that cliffhanger. I was like, that's not even really that bad. That's just like any other fantasy romance cliffhanger to ever exist. I don't know. I did not enjoy this, and it's so sad because I had so much fun with the 1st book. I don't think the first one is like Shakespeare literature, but it was just so fun. I don't think I mentioned in the intro of this video, but I definitely do want to do some unhauling throughout this whole thing, especially with series that I'm unsure about. If I don't want to continue that, I will unhaul that 1st book, obviously. The Haunted Heir was one of my most anticipated, and I will not be unhauling the Veiled Kingdom. This is personalized. It is a pretty edition. I probably still will buy the 2nd since I still plan on reading the 3rd, so I will be keeping this on my shelves. But it is time to do another spin, and I'm kind of nervous about this. I have replaced Haunted Heir with the 4th book in the Legend of Asmar series, and let's spin this bad boy. A Queen Comes to Power is the 2nd book in the Heir Comes to Rise series. I actually gave this 1st book 2 stars. So this is a good one for me because it's really going to be like, do I want to continue the series? Should I continue collecting these editions? This is an omnibus edition. It's absolutely stunning in my opinion. I do have this one personalized. I won't be getting rid of this one, but in theory, this will help me figure out if I want to collect more as they come out. My issue with the 1st one was just that I thought it felt like every other fan road ever ever exist. So I'm hoping book 2 like pushes it somewhere else, the plot really progresses to something else, and then I'm way more invested. So I really would like to continue on in the series. I really would like to own these. Like, that is stunning. So wish me luck. Hi, we are just making some soup dumplings for lunch. So I'm gonna steam them. I like to use cabbage when possible in my steamer. And I figured I would update you because I'm about 20% into The Queen Comes to Power. You can hear my water boiling. I have the book here. I have decided to DNF it. Honestly, I remembered absolutely nothing from the first book. And I didn't read it that long ago. I think I read it just over a year ago. I feel like I typically remember like everything from books I really like. I didn't even remember like where the book ended. I thought it ended somewhere completely different. I don't know who any of the characters are. I remember a single thing that happened in the first book, and that's bad. They're just like sitting in their steamer. No, don't touch. My soup dumplings are done. They look absolutely delicious. I did try a new sauce today. It's like a ponzu sauce with some sambalik and some mayo and some sesame oil. Very excited to try these. If you don't know, they're just like a little dumpling that has like meat. These ones are chicken and some soup inside. They're so juicy. They're so good, and they take 10 minutes to make. These little guys are Korean rice cakes, but stuffed with mozzarella cheese. Actually, I think these ones have Gouda cheese in them. They're called tabuki, and also absolutely delicious. They're kind of like an Asian matzo stick, and those take like 4 minutes. My bubble tea will be here in about 7 minutes. I'm very excited for it. Let's actually sit down and talk about this. I just realized that I don't care. I don't care about the characters. I don't care about the romance in this, obviously, and if you've read this book, you kind of know why. I don't care about the world building. And I struggled in the first book thinking the world building was not good because the Fae were supposed to be big, mean, brooding Fae, but we were never shown that, things like that. I think everything that I struggled with in book 1, I'm still struggling with in book 2. So I'm DNFing this 20% in because why waste 5 more hours of my life listening to the audiobook when I'm only going to give it at most a 3-star? And do I want to continue on in a 5-book series where it's been 2 and 3-star vibes only? No, not when there's 5-star vibe series that exist, and I have far too many series to give this a priority over one of the other ones. So we're officially DNFing my first series in this video, which means we're currently caught up on a series and we're down a series, which puts our total grand number to 75 technically, which feels pretty good. Getting a series completely off feels good. Like this feels good to me. We do need another spin. I have replaced A Queen Comes to Power with probably something I'm gonna regret, and Legacy of Steel. The Legacy of Ash series has been on my TBR probably the longest. I read Legacy of Ash like 4 years ago now, and I gave it 4 stars. These are chunky boys. I own the entire series, but I have yet to continue, and I think that kind of says something. I don't want to DNF it without giving it a try because I did really like that first book. It's on the wheel. I'm hoping we don't land on it right now. I am planning to join Patreon Sprints tonight, so I would like something that I can physically read. So honestly, I'm probably hoping for The Mist Thief, Two Twisted Crowns, Reckless, Empire of Traitors, or Shadow and Storm. Oh, I'm really hoping for all the good boys and none of the bad boys. What is that? That's pink. No! Why did I put it on the wheel? Legacy of Steel it is. Also, I scared both cats with that. Why did I do this to myself? Why? First off, I got Starbucks delivered. I got a grande iced white mocha, half sweet, added pumpkin cream cold foam, and no whip. And I did it with blonde espresso instead of their signature espresso because I like the blonde better. Oh, that's really, really sweet, but also delicious. But it's a sweet boy. If you want to see what I did. If you like a sweet drink, try this. But if you don't try it. I did make an indent into Legacy Steel last night. Honestly, I'm really impressed. I made it only 65 pages, but this is a chonky boy with a intense writing style. I have to reread a lot of things in his writing style. There's something that just, it feels like almost improper grammar, but it's like his style. Not improper grammar. I just think words are kind of in a funny order. I think that with like super descriptive writing, I normally find that. So maybe it's my brain not being okay with the order that things are actually supposed to be in, not an actual writing thing. But I just find that I like really have to think when I'm reading his books. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it means it takes me a longer time to read his stories. The thing that I'm really impressed in is how much I remember from the first book. I haven't read the first book in 3 years probably. I did give it 4 stars. I really liked it. I do have to refresh my memory at times. Like I have to look at the character list a few times just to remember whose family is who, and like there are a couple characters missing, but their siblings are like predominant characters in this one. I just had to like refresh my mind that that was the sibling of this character that did this and this and this. But overall, like I'm not struggling at all to remember the first book, and I think that says so much about the first book and how unique it was. That story holds such a place in my brain as something so different than anything I've read. This is a very political series. We're following the politics of the world. There's a very like unique world with like gods, and we see the gods in the story, which I think is fun. They're not just like religion based. Like it is religion based, but like the gods talk to the like most holy religious people or the most dark mischievous people or things like that. And I really like am intrigued by what's happening on a political level, also in a war level, and also on a god level, because the gods are kind of at war against each other, but also the nations are at war. I'm like intrigued quite a bit. I honestly thought this was going to be an unhaul. I thought there was no way I was going to remember things, especially after the last book where like I read the last one only like a year ago and couldn't remember a single thing. I read this so long ago. So I think it's really like speaking to how much I enjoyed the first book that I remember so much. Legacy of Ash essentially just follows 3 characters, 2 of which who are prisoners of war. Their mother led a rebellion against the ruling parties and was murdered, and so we follow her 2 children who are prisoners and like locked away and kind of used as tokens to like keep their nation under control and stop another rebellion. And then we also follow the guy that murdered their mother, and we kind of follow these 3 as they end up teaming up against the evil powers that be. But it's so political. Like if you like a political story, pick this series up. It is so political and so like there's so much going on. There's so much depth to this world, society, and the characters and things like that. I definitely like some POVs better than others, and I think that's why this book will never get like a 5-star from me. It's probably a little too chunky. I might have to get the audiobook because I don't know how much physical reading time I have, and I like want to read more. So yeah, I'm kind of rambling, but overall I'm just impressed that like I remember so much still, and I'm shocked because this isn't a DNF at this moment in time. I'm still like very excited to continue. Drink more Starbies. Starbies is good for the soul. Over the last couple days, I've made a very big dent in this book. I'm on chapter 49, page 509, which means I have about 200 pages left. Actually, I think less than that. No, more than that. It's 750 pages, so 250 pages left pretty much. And I wish I had talked to you a little bit earlier, because I think around 40% into this book, I was sitting here like, oh my god, this is a 5-star. Why did I wait so long? I feel so attached. And then it kept going. You know, like a joke that takes too long to get to the point. And then it's like, it could have been funnier if it hadn't taken as long. But since it took so long, it's like only kind of funny, but it could have been really funny. That's how I feel about this book. It's just too long. But at the same time, because of all the time spent with every single character, I'm truly attached to so many of these characters. When things happen, I'm like gasping and like, oh my god. Or like, there's been a few times where I've vocally said, aw, when there was like a sweet moment. I definitely have my favorite characters. I love Anna. I loved her in book 1, and I love her in this one, and I'm very curious about everything around her and like what she is. But there's also like characters that I didn't think I would like that I like, and there's so much politics, and this world is just really well built out and established. I think part of that is just because of how long all of these books are. But I also just don't think a book needs to be over 500 pages. 600 tops, in my opinion. When we get to 750, I'm feeling like it's dragging along a little bit, so it probably won't be a 5-star in the end. But overall, I'm still really enjoying it, which is really good for this series, although not good for my list of series, because I have a feeling we will be continuing on in the series, and we will not be knocking anything off my list of 75 series. I hopefully will finish this today and update you again at some point. I really need to stop drinking these because you just see my cans in all of my clips. I finished Legacy of Steel. I'm giving this book 3 stars, which means I think I'll be keeping the series on my shelf. And these are chunky boys, so it would have felt really good if I wasn't keeping them on my shelves, because they would have made a lot of room. And I think I just would have felt very good that it was no longer there. I kind of have mixed feelings, because I have a feeling that Legacy of Light, the last book in the series, is gonna sit on my shelves for another 3 years before I pick it up. It's gonna need another challenge like this to force me to pick it up, because the plot of these two feels resolved. I remember reading Legacy of Ash and being like, where's the story? How is it going to move on from this? But at least I feel like there was threads of things that still didn't feel resolved that led us to Legacy of Steel, and I enjoyed these, even though I do think that they almost are written as standalone companion novels. But interesting enough, because you couldn't read this one without reading this one in my opinion, but you don't necessarily need to continue the series because the conclusion feels pretty good, and I think I'm really gonna struggle with wanting to pick this boy up. There's not a single plot thread left that like I care about, even when I read the synopsis of this and I was like, this feels like a standalone to a duology. I don't know. So I am keeping them on my shelf, but they're probably gonna be some TBR vets again in 3 years. Overall, I enjoyed this. I just thought it was too long, which is not surprising considering it's 700 pages. I think it's really epic in scale. Like, it's truly epic. Like, if you are looking for something similar to Wheel of Time or Game of Thrones, I think that this gives you that like rich world building and all the different like politics and the different families and the different characters and knowing who is who in the noble system and the peasants and like things like that. And it's overwhelming at times, but it just like fit together so nicely. I just think that this just lagged, and that's what gave it 3 stars in the end. Just didn't need to be big. It could have been 5 stars if it was a short king. Also, I need to talk about how Matthew Ward writes battle so good. I've never read another person who writes battle the way he does. The way he does it is like, because he switches POVs between characters like in chapters, you're reading a battle scene and the battle scene could be like 100 pages long, but it doesn't feel like that because he breaks it up so well. Because like I'll be fighting some guy and then I'll see like a bomb go off or like smoke or like something random in the distance that'll be like a big like cliffhanger of my POV, and then we jump into someone who was in that smoke and we'll see what happened in that smoke, and then it'll all like quietly, the trails will lead back into my POV at some point to know what happened afterwards within the fighting. It flows so nicely and it feels very easy to read. There are some really big military battles. If you're not a battle person, this isn't for you. I will be keeping this on the series, so we did not drop that number at all because I still have one more book to read. But we do need to do another spin, which means I need to get the wheel. I somehow managed to lose my pink marker, so we have a random green one on. I replaced Legacy of Ash with Cytonic, which is the 3rd book in the Skyward series. I've owned those for a very long time. I really need to make a decision on those. Let's darken me up so you can see the writing, and let's do a spin. I'm so scared. That looks pink. A twist of the blade. Okay. I think someone's mowing their lawn outside, and I'm so sorry if you can hear it. Oh god. Why do I pick the worst times to vlog? Also, I don't know why, but I'm wearing my blue light glasses today. I don't wear them very often, but I decided to put them on today. I think it's because my hair is up in a ponytail, and I just feel like they fit the vibe, the aesthetic. I'm like, you're sexy teacher. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. I am 5 chapters into A Twist of the Blade. I had a feeling that this was gonna happen. I'm DNFing this book. This is a book I read very similarly to An Heir Comes to Rise, which is the other series I've already DNF'd in this video. I read them around the same time. I didn't love the first book, but was like, maybe. But I just don't care. I remember a lot more in this book. I think S.M. Gaither's writing works a lot better for me. I have actually read and loved S.M. Gaither work. Flame and Sparrow, the sequel to that, is on the wheel currently, and it's on my most anticipated sequels. So I think it's interesting how much one series can work for me and another series can't. I just don't care about the characters in this. I don't care about where we left off in them. This story from S.M. Gaither feels more like Throne of Glass versus Flame and Sparrow feels more like ACOTAR. I'm an ACOTAR girly. I like a little bit more romance forward stories than YA plot heavy fantasy. I think because I pick up regular fantasy that's not romantasy for more of my plot heavy structure most of the time. So I like ACOTAR where like I'm really rooting for a romance as well as the storyline and stuff, versus in this I just don't care about the romance. I don't see their connection. I don't see their chemistry. It feels very plot focused, and it's funny because I am a plot focused girly normally, but when it comes to romantasy, I want those like scenes that make me giggle and laugh, and like I'm just so excited to read. So that's my issue, and I've decided to DNF it. Again, I was editing this video and I say earlier, why continue on in a 5-book long series that I'm only going to give them all 3 stars when there's incredible books to exist out there that I want to read and anticipated sequels on this wheel? Why? I have actually done my next wheel spin. I did this last night actually so that I could read a physical book when I went to bed. I was actually hoping for an ebook, something on KU, so that I could read it on my Kindle or my phone. However, that's not what I got, and I landed on Reckless, which is the sequel to Powerless. Powerless was one of my best books of the year last year. This book surprised me and many others by me me liking it. I giggled so hard in it. I laughed so hard in it. This is not plot focused at all. The plot was flimsy at best, but I had so much fun with the characters and the romance and the story that there is. I did have fun with, and I'm really excited to dive into the sequel. It's been out a couple months. It's one of my most anticipated. I don't know how I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm 30 pages in currently, and I'm already having a good time. A little bit more hesitant going into this one because was I just in the perfect mood when I read the first one? I guess we're gonna find out. I've heard mixed reviews on this second book, but I'm excited to dive into it. I'm really happy that I landed on Anticipated because it's just fun to read a book that you're gonna love, and this will help me scratch off another series off the thing because I will be caught up once I read this book, because we are currently down to 74 series, and after Reckless we should be down to 73. Goodbye for now. I'm so excited to go read. I just had a chocolate cupcake, so here's hoping that there's no chocolate in my mouth still. I'm 100 pages into Reckless, and I'm really liking it. I do think it's missing some of just the overall like vibe that the first one was. However, I think that might be due to Lauren Roberts' writing improving. I'm finding a lot of these lines are more well crafted than they were in the first book, and they're hitting a little bit deeper. And she seems to have like a plot in mind, which I'm really excited for. I think it's different than the first book. I saw a lot of complaints about that, but I was like, how is it supposed to be the same? They're out of the trials. You couldn't continue the trial vibe when we're out of the trials. Not every book can be the Hunger Games and go back into the Hunger Games in the second book, you know? And plus, if it did, it would be just like called copying the Hunger Games because this book is already under so much fire for its inspiration. So yeah, I don't know. It's not bothering me that it's different. I think I'm really liking that. I did think I wanted a little bit more banter between the two, but we just kind of got them together and we're starting to get that banter, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving Kai's POVs. I love just like sitting in his head and hearing the thoughts he's having about her and like how he's so tormented. Her POVs are a little bit more boring, and I really liked that we got Kit's POV in this. I like screamed about it. I was like, wait, did I forget? Like, were these in Powerless and I just forgot, or is this new? And then people like confirmed that it was new, and I was like screaming because I was like, oh, my sweet little baby boy who's been tragically hurt and abused at this point. Yeah, so I'm eating it up. I think it's gonna read really quickly. I'm really happy that the wheel landed on this one for me. Okay, I am still working on Reckless. I actually have not made a lot of progress in it because I'm annotating it. I just have to like sit down and physically read it, so it's taking me a little bit longer, and I actually have a lot of photography work I need to do, so I kind of need an audiobook. So I figured I would do another spin to like work on in the meantime while I'm physically reading this in the evenings and stuff. The real big problem with that is there are not a lot of audiobook books on here. Listen, I keep losing my markers, so it's black, but I replaced Reckless with Good Girl Bad Blood, and we're gonna do a little spinny spin. Is that on pink? Ooh. It's right in the middle. Oh, I just touched it and it went to Good Girl Bad Blood. I did just touch it, but it did land right in the middle. I'm gonna check if Empire of Traders has an audiobook, and if it does, I think I'm gonna read this because the idea behind this vlog was to like help me get my series lower. And this one will do that. Good Girl Bad Blood, I'm very excited about, but it's the second book and I'll still have the third book to read, so it won't necessarily help me with that. So because it landed in the middle, I'm gonna do a little choicey choice. And if this has an audiobook, we're gonna do an audiobook. I've never seen that happen where it like landed like kind of like on the spike. Fascinating. Okay, I am 100 pages in to Empire of Traders. And I'm not gonna lie, I read this book when I had COVID, so remembering some of the things was hard, but I'm intrigued by it, and I'm just like taking a little bit longer to refresh my memory than I find I normally am during books. The first book followed two female characters. I actually thought it was going to be a sapphic YA romantasy, but it actually follows two females who then each have a romance, which I thought was kind of interesting. I've never seen it happen where like we follow two POVs and we get equally their romance. Like it's normally like one POV, I find. I did enjoy both romances. I remember liking the bodyguard romance a little bit better. We follow our one character who is the princess slash heir to the throne, except for her whole line has been murdered off another race that is now taking over the throne, and they're keeping her as a political prisoner. So she has a bodyguard, but the bodyguard's not there to protect her. It's there to keep her in line, keep her in the room, and things like like that, as they use her to kind of keep her people under wraps. And then we have a nun character who actually is the person who murdered the queen, like the queen that is the other character's mom. It's been sitting not right with her, and she ends up going to a life of being a nun and what that means for her, but she ends up being asked because she's kind of a token that people talk about, like the Queen's Lair, and the rebellion kind of asks her to join, and she ends up helping them because she can't let her people suffer after what she did to help save them. And the last book ends on a pretty big cliffhanger, in my opinion. There's a lot that goes down in the last book. I gave it 3 stars. I remember really enjoying it, but like feeling like it was missing some things. But I remember the discussion on like corruption and power corruption was really amazing. Like, we overthrow tyrants to then just become the tyrants. I thought that was a really interesting discussion within this story, for especially a YA story. And I liked the romances enough, but obviously like I hadn't continued it right away, and I'm not sure if that was just my COVID brain that like didn't love it enough or whatsoever. But I'm enjoying the first 10 chapters, but I'm definitely having a hard time finding my footing. I wish I had read them a little bit closer together, especially because I'm using the audiobook and there's one narrator for 4 POVs, and I'm struggling sometimes when we switch POVs. It takes me a while to figure out whose head we're in. Maybe this would be better physically read. I don't know if the like physical book says their names at the beginning of each chapter, but I just wish the audiobook did that, because it would save me a lot of time being like, which character are we in, because there's 2 females and 2 males, and they do run a little bit together. Their voices are not unique enough, especially with a narrator who isn't really trying to separate their voices at all. So I wouldn't recommend the audiobook, but I am enjoying the story so far and where it's going. But interesting enough, last time I found the princess the more intriguing character, and I think this time I'm finding the nun the more intriguing character. However, their settings have kind of swapped, so I wonder if I just find the one setting more intriguing. I am 42% into this book and I'm DNFing it. I don't care. I wanted to care, but I don't care. I'm barely listening at this point. It's not a short series either. It's not like, oh, I'll just finish this book and there's one other book. I think it's 4 books long. I hate that I don't like this, because I think it has some of the most pretty covers ever, and I really wanted to like it. And it's not that I don't like it. Like, this book is fine, but fine is almost worse to me. And what is the point in reading it for it just to be fine? I literally was listening to this book, looking at my bookshelf, being like, I'd rather be reading that, even that. So I'm DNFing it. We're crossing it off my list. I think that puts us at 73 if I'm correct. I don't own that book physically, so I will not be getting rid of it because I never owned it. I've been reading it off KU, and then I did get the Audible credit. However, this has also taught me something about myself. All of the books I've DNF'd so far are these like romantasy that lean a little bit more plot heavy, that lean a little bit more like YA romantasy than like new adult romantasy, but they're trying to like bridge the gap between YA and new adult, and I felt very mid about all of them. So I actually have more things that I'm gonna DNF right here and unhaul. I'm DNFing A Court of Blood and Bindings. This is on the wheel. I don't want to read it. I felt so mid. I liked some of the other books that I've read in this vlog already that DNF'd the second book more than I liked this first book. I've heard not great things about the second book. We're gonna unhaul it. We're gonna take it off the wheel. We're DNFing the series. A Lady of Darkness also gives me those Tog vibes. I actually technically have DNF'd the second book, and I was like, I'll try the second book again. I just DNF'd it because it was a reading slump. No, I DNF'd it because I didn't even like the first book, so I DNF'd the second book. Why am I trying to try it again? We're unhauling this. And while I sat here and looked at the wheel to be like, what am I gonna put on it next? I said, wow, I really hope I don't land on these. So I'm unhauling the Cytonic, the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson. I truly just know I'm gonna pick up book 3, I'm gonna be like, what in the God's name is happening? And I'm not gonna care, and I'm not gonna pay attention, and then I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna read 50% of a book, and then I'm gonna come to the camera and be like, well, I'm DNFing this. So that puts us, oh my god, I already forgot what number we're at, but Editing Cassie will tell you the number right here. And it also makes me get rid of 3 hardbacks, which should be really great, but these were actually already kind of hidden, so it's not really giving my shelf more room. But it does feel nice to not have this sitting on a list of books that I'm going to continue that I don't really care about continuing. I did like the first 2, but I read them 4 or 5 years ago now, and since I haven't continued on, I think that says something, especially as someone who is such a binge reader. But now my wheel needs some fixing, because 1, 2, oh my god, erase. My eraser sucks. 3 are now missing, but I don't know what I want to read. I don't know what I want to put on there. So I think I'm just gonna finish Reckless at this point, and then I'll get back to you. I finally finished Reckless. It's been far too long since I last updated this vlog. I think it's been 2 weeks. I ended up having to read Spiffbo in between, and this just kind of fell to the side because it required me to physically sit down and annotate it. That may have hurt my enjoyment of the book a little bit. I'm ending up giving this book 3 stars. It was close to a 4-star for me, but I just didn't love it, which is really depressing because it was probably my most anticipated book, and the fact that we started with the sequel to this, which I was so excited for, and that let me down, and ended with this sequel and it let me down. Am I cursed? This just is not the type of story that I love. Same with the sequel to this book. I feel like they have a lot of similarities. This is a story of 2 characters kind of like on the run, and it's really about them together, and we don't see any outside character moments really enough, and I just found this book was really, really repetitive. Although I enjoyed my time with Pei and Kai, and like I loved their banter and their cute moments, like I tabbed quite a bit. There's some really, really cute moments in here, some of my favorite lines, and I'm really excited to see where book 3 goes. I think book 3 is still one of my most anticipated. I just felt like not enough happened in this book, and then I really missed the plot of the first book, and like there wasn't a lot of plot in the first book, but there was at least some action and like something driving me forward. The on the run plot just does not work for me as well as the trial plot did. Book 3, with that ending, I'm excited to be back in the setting of the first book with like the politics of the world and stuff. That's something I really missed in this book. I missed the characters we already met and knew and loved in Powerless. I actually think Kit's POVs were my favorite, which honestly isn't surprising considering Red Queen, I loved Maven and I loved like being in his head. Like I loved any scene I got with Maven, and I'm always saying I'm Team Maven in the Red Queen series. So me being Team Kit, also not very surprising. So I enjoyed this. I didn't hate it, I enjoyed it, but it was a 3-star for me. But with that, we are down to 70 series that I'm currently working on. Feels good to say that number. It feels good to have 7 series knocked off my list. 2 of which I have yet to complete, but they're just like completed up to date. 5 of which I'm blessing and releasing. And then we also did work on another series, but I decided to continue that series. I think we did pretty good in this episode. Let me know down below how you're feeling about what all happened here, and if you enjoyed this. I feel like it's something different for my channel. I'll leave my last series vlog up here for you to check out if you enjoyed just watching me read some sequels. And if you'd like to leave me an emoji just to say you were here, leave me an apple emoji. And have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day.